So I'm going to take my 6-inch out, and I flew it before just to test the 6-inch, and it worked out good. But now I'm going to put it up in the air, and I'm going to test it with a couple different batteries. First battery I'm going to test it with is Flywoo. I got to move my camera. It'll work. It's fine. I'm going to do it with the Flywoo 3500 mAh. 3500 or 3000? 3000, sorry, 3000 mAh lithium-ion battery. This is running 18650s. Now my thought is running this with the DJI Action 2 camera and the magnetic metal base. It has a lot less weight than my 21700s, which are 4000 mAh. So as you can see, size difference is pretty significant. Let me block out the sun here for a second. Size difference is pretty significant, and weight as well. So I'm going to run it with this first, then I'm going to run it with this. All right, so on this first flight that I did today, I got roughly about 15 minutes from launch to land. Actually, it's 15 minutes, 2 seconds. And that was running, as I said, the 18650 3000 mAh lithium-ion packs from Flywoo. And also utilizing the DJI Action 2 with its magnetic mount. All in all, I would say that it flew very, very well for a cruising type quad. You're not going to be doing freestyle with this. That's not what this is for. So if you're wanting to get a long flight time and getting just some good, smooth cruising, hey, this works, and it works perfect. As you can see here, it's flying pretty good. I was doing roughly around about, I'd say 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. And that's a pretty good click for going with a longer range, long flight time quad. Now, I was drawing about, I would say roughly 10 to 12 amp draw off of this battery with my current setup. And it wasn't very windy out. There's a little bit of a breeze going, but it wasn't bad at all. So I'm going to fast forward through most of this because I don't want to waste your time. And it's extremely boring out here in this spot where I was at. So I'm just going to fast forward to the end of this so you can see once I land, it was 15 minutes and 2 seconds. Now here we are towards the end, and I gotta say, it flew pretty well. I was bored as shit, but it flew well. Better than I thought that it would fly. When I flew it the other day, my first time out, with a lithium-ion pack, I was running a 21700 4S battery, which is significantly heavier. But I also did just come from flying my freestyle. So to me, it was like, oh my God, this thing barely moves, which is not the case, at all. But I flew this battery down to 2.5 volts per cell, which is the minimum that I can fly that cell without damaging the battery. But always refer to the manufacturer of your batteries to make sure if it's safe to bring it down to 2.5 volts or not. Some manufacturers say not to bring it down that low. So let's move on. So now I'm going to throw this up in the air with a lithium polymer. So it's a 1300 mAh LiPo battery. And I changed locations just because the other location just, it's kind of boring, right? It's super freaking boring. Now, I am at a lake, very large lake,
in the area that I live at. And I'm going to fly it over the water. Well, some of it's water, the rest of it's ice. But why not? Let's see how the lithium polymer does. Or LiPo.
All right, on to one of my most favorite visual flights I have ever done. First of all, look at this lake. It's freaking amazing. I had no idea whatsoever what this lake looked like until about right now when I was up in the air and looking at it, and I was like, holy crap. Because of the glare and everything like that, when you're looking at it at a low angle, you really don't see this pattern. This amazing, chaotic nature just making something just absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, out of this LiPo battery, I was able to get 8 minutes and 38 seconds. Now, my timer is off by 29.5 seconds. It's adding 29.5 seconds to whatever time is on here. So at the end of this clip, after I fast forward, which I don't really want to fast forward through this, but I am anyway, it's going to say 9 minutes and 7 seconds. Just take that 29.5 seconds off and you have 8 minutes and 38 seconds. I'm using Final Cut Pro, and for whatever reason, I can't change the offset to the negative. I can change it to the positive, but to the negative, it just doesn't work. So that's what I just have to deal with. I'll find a better timer somewhere else at some point. Anyhow, I was doing about 80 kilometers an hour with this. I was at about a 10 to 12 amp draw. Again, not a lot of wind happening here. So it was pretty calm air. There was just a slight breeze. It wasn't anything serious. Now, flying at the 80 kilometers per hour, I dropped down to 3.7 in about 3 minutes. And then I started to slow it down a little bit, and I brought it down to about 50 to maybe 60 at time kilometer per hour. And I went like, I would say another 5 minutes at 3.6 volts per cell. I flew for 8 minutes, or I'm sorry, 5 minutes or so, which is crazy. So you just bring that speed down a little bit, and granted, I mean, that makes sense. Less speed, you're going to last a little bit longer. So yes, I was able to achieve 8 minutes and 38 seconds with this build using a LiPo battery. Now, if I would have started off at around that 50, 60 kilometers per hour, I would have achieved that 10-minute goal that I was looking for out of the LiPo. But I wanted to go a little bit faster because it's a LiPo. It's got a lot more pep to it. So, yeah, I felt like flying a little bit faster to start off with. Now, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to fast forward through all this, and we're going to get to the third flight here in just a second. And here we are at the end of the second flight, and as you can see, it's saying 9 minutes, 7 seconds, but it's actually not going to be that. It is 8 minutes, 38 seconds. And now we're going to move on to flight number 3, where I'm running a lithium-ion battery and running a SMO 4K, which is significantly lighter.
Now I'm going to go up there with a little bit lighter of a setup. I'm going to put on a 18650 lithium-ion pack, which is much smaller than my 21700s. Weighs about the same as that 1300 mAh LiPo. But instead of running the DJI Action 2, I'm running with the SMO 4K, which is quite a bit lighter.
Okay, so as you can see here, my timer is saying 28.26 seconds already before I even take off. That's just, again, an issue with Final Cut Pro timer, whatever. Anyhow, I got 15 minutes and 48 seconds out of this flight total. Now, I could have flown probably another 5 minutes out of this battery, maybe even longer. I had to land at 3.1 volts. And the reason I had to land was because my hands were exposed to the cold, and I just couldn't take it anymore, so I had to stop. Like an idiot, I wasn't using the RC controller, big mitt thing, whatever, that you put both your hands into, and the radio, and it keeps your hands warm. I should have, but I figured it was sunny enough, I'd be fine. Anyhow, 15 minutes, 48 seconds, landed at 3.1 volts. Now, if you remember from the first flight that I had, I landed at 15 minutes and 2 seconds at 2.5 volts per cell. Now, the difference between these two flights was only roughly around 30 grams. My first flight, I was running the DJI Action 2, which comes in at about 60 grams, and whatever the magnetic mount is on that, probably 15 grams. So let's say 75 grams. It might be heavier. I haven't weighed it, so I can't really tell you exactly. But I do know that the SMO 4K weighs around about 34 grams itself, and then a couple grams for the little TPU mount that I was using for it. So I'm going to say about 30 grams lighter on this flight. Now, does 30 grams in weight equate to that much more flight time? I don't know. I'm going to lean more towards that first battery that I flew might have some internal damage, and that's why I was only getting 15.2 minutes of flight time. So, at a future point, I'm going to retest it, running the same battery that I flew here, and see what type of flight time that I get out of it with Action 2 on there, just to make a comparison. Anyhow, it flew fantastic. It flew for a long time, and I'm very, very happy with it. This is a very fun build, and I've had tons of fun doing it, and I appreciate you watching my video, and I will catch you in the next one. Now, I am going to post a cut version of flying at this lake, because it's just too pretty not to have a nice little cinematic style video put out there. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming out probably within the next few days. Again, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.